A wealthy woman's scream pierces the air of an exclusive hotel lobby. "Don't touch me," her voice dripping with disgust as she recoils from a man in worn work clothes. Security rushes forward. Guests whisper and stare. The man stands frozen, his calloused hand still extended, holding something she dropped. Her designer heels click against marble as she backs away, her face twisted in revulsion. "Do you know who I am?" she hisses, diamonds glittering at her throat. "I could buy and sell you 1,000 times over." The lobby falls silent, but then a hotel manager appears, his face pale with recognition. He approaches the man in work clothes, and what happens next will make this woman question everything she thought she knew about wealth, worth, and the true measure of a human being. Because the man she just humiliated isn't who anyone thinks he is, and in 60 seconds, her entire world is about to shatter in the most unexpected way possible. The morning had started like any other Tuesday for Victoria Ashford. She'd woken in her penthouse suite, ordered breakfast from room service, and spent an hour getting ready for a business lunch that would seal a multi-million-dollar deal. Everything had to be perfect. Her appearance, her demeanor, her control over every situation. At 52, Victoria had built an empire in commercial real estate, and she'd done it by never showing weakness, never backing down, and never ever letting anyone treat her as anything less than extraordinary. She'd learned early that the world respected power and money above all else, and she'd accumulated both in quantities that most people couldn't fathom. As she stepped into the elevator of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, checking her reflection one final time, she had no idea that the next 10 minutes would become the most humbling experience of her life. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more incredible tales about life's unexpected lessons, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell, so you never miss a story that might just change the way you see the world. The elevator descended smoothly, and Victoria reviewed her notes on her phone, barely noticing when the doors opened to the lobby. She strode forward with purpose, her Louboutin heels announcing her presence with each confident step. The lobby was bustling with the usual Tuesday crowd, business people, tourists, hotel staff, moving efficiently through their duties. Victoria was halfway across the marble expanse when her phone slipped from her hand. It clattered to the floor, sliding several feet away. She stopped, irritated by this minor disruption to her perfect morning, and was about to retrieve it herself when she saw him. A man in faded work clothes, jeans stained with what looked like paint or grease, a threadbare flannel shirt, scuffed boots, was bending down to pick up her phone. Everything in Victoria recoiled. She'd spent her entire life in circles, where appearance was everything, where the cut of your suit and the brand of your watch told everyone exactly who you were and what you were worth. This man looked like he'd just walked off a construction site. His hands were rough and dirty. His clothes were shabby. He was exactly the kind of person Victoria had spent decades avoiding, the kind of person who represented everything she'd fought so hard to rise above. As he straightened up, holding her phone toward her with a small, kind smile, something inside Victoria snapped. Maybe it was the stress of the deal she was about to close. Maybe it was the years of building walls around herself. Maybe it was simply that she'd forgotten, somewhere along the way, that kindness doesn't have a dress code. Whatever the reason, when his fingers came close to hers as he offered the phone, she jerked backward violently and screamed those words that would haunt her. "Don't touch me." The lobby seemed to freeze. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Victoria's face was flushed with anger and something else, disgust, plain and undisguised. "How dare you?" she continued, her voice rising. "Do you know who I am? I am Victoria Ashford. I own half the buildings in this city." The man's expression shifted from friendly concern to confusion, then to something like sadness. He carefully set her phone on a nearby table, taking a step back with his hands raised slightly. "I apologize, ma'am," he said quietly. "I was just trying to help." But Victoria wasn't finished. Years of pent-up stress, of fighting for respect in boardrooms full of men who doubted her, of proving herself over and over again, came pouring out in a torrent of misplaced anger. "Help? You think I need help from someone like you? Look at yourself. You probably make in a year what I spend on a handbag. Don't ever presume to touch my belongings again." Security guards were approaching now, uncertain expressions on their faces. Other guests were recording on their phones. A mother covered her young daughter's ears. The man in work clothes simply stood there, absorbing her vitriol with a calm dignity that only seemed to infuriate Victoria more. "Are you still standing there?" she demanded. "Someone get this person away from me. I have an important lunch meeting and I won't have my day ruined by—" That's when Marcus Chen, the hotel's general manager, came running across the lobby. Marcus had worked at the Grand Metropolitan for 15 years, rising through the ranks from front desk clerk to his current position. He was known for his composure under pressure, but right now his face was white as paper. "Mrs. Ashford," he said breathlessly, positioning himself between Victoria and the man in work clothes. "Mrs. Ashford, please, if I could just explain—" Victoria turned her fury on Marcus. "Explain what? That your hotel allows random workers to harass guests. I'll be speaking to the owner about this. This is completely unacceptable." Marcus's voice was barely above a whisper. "Mrs. Ashford, this is the owner." The words hung in the air like smoke. Victoria's brain struggled to process them. "What?" "This," Marcus repeated, gesturing to the man in work clothes, "is James Morrison. He owns this hotel. He owns the entire Morrison Hotel Group, 16 properties in 8 countries. The lobby had gone completely silent now. Victoria felt the blood draining from her face. James Morrison. She knew the name, of course. Everyone in real estate knew the name. The Morrison Hotel Group was legendary, a billion-dollar empire built from a single bed and breakfast. James Morrison himself was notoriously private, rarely photographed, known for his hands-on approach to business and his enormous philanthropic efforts. And she'd just humiliated him in the lobby of his own hotel. "That's not possible," Victoria whispered, but even as she said it, she was remembering fragments of articles she'd read. Morrison was known for showing up unannounced at his properties, often dressed casually, sometimes even in work clothes, because he believed in understanding every aspect of his business, from the executive suites to the maintenance rooms. He'd famously started his career as a janitor, working his way through night school, and he'd never forgotten where he came from. James stepped forward, and instinctively Victoria stepped back. He noticed, and something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, but disappointment. "Mrs. Ashford," he said, his voice still calm and measured, "you dropped your phone. I picked it up. That's all that happened here. Or at least that's all that should have happened. I'd love to know what you're thinking right now. Drop a comment below and tell me how you would have reacted in this situation." Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it again. Words, usually her greatest weapon, had completely abandoned her. Around them, phones were still recording. She could already imagine the headlines, the social media posts, the damage to her reputation. But worse than that, much worse, was the look in James Morrison's eyes. Not hatred, not even anger, just a profound sadness, as if he'd seen this play out too many times before, as if he'd hoped for better from humanity and been disappointed once again. Marcus was speaking in urgent, hushed tones to James, but James held up a hand to silence him. "It's fine, Marcus," he said. Then to Victoria, "Your lunch meeting is in the Riverside room, correct? With the Hoffman Group?" Victoria nodded mutely. How did he know that? "I'll have your phone sent up to you," James continued. "It's not damaged. And don't worry, I won't interfere with your deal. Despite what just happened here, I believe in letting business proceed professionally." He turned to leave, and Victoria found her voice, though it came out small and broken. "Mr. Morrison, I didn't—" James paused, looking back at her. "You didn't know who I was. I understand. But here's the thing, Mrs. Ashford. You didn't know who I was, and it didn't matter to you. You saw someone you judged to be beneath you, and you treated him accordingly. That tells me everything I need to know." The words hit Victoria like physical blows. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, to explain that she wasn't really like this, that it had been a stressful morning, that she'd been caught off guard. But all of those excuses died in her throat because she knew, in that moment of brutal honesty, that he was right. She'd made a snap judgment based purely on appearance, and she'd acted cruelly because she'd thought there would be no consequences. "I judge a person by how they treat those they believe can do nothing for them," James continued. "That's the real measure of character. And today in this lobby you showed me yours." He walked away then, his worn boots quiet on the marble floor. Marcus followed, still apologizing profusely, but James just shook his head and disappeared into a service corridor. Victoria stood frozen in the middle of the lobby, aware of every eye on her. Every phone still pointed in her direction. Her hands were shaking. In the span of 5 minutes, she'd gone from untouchable to utterly exposed. A young woman approached hesitantly, one of the hotel staff. "Mrs. Ashford," she said softly, "your meeting room is ready. Can I escort you there?" Victoria nodded, following the young woman on legs that felt like they might give out at any moment. As they walked, she caught sight of herself in one of the lobby's ornate mirrors. She looked the same as she had that morning. Perfectly styled hair, designer suit, expensive jewelry. But somehow, she felt like she was seeing herself clearly for the first time in years. The riverside room was beautiful, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. The Hoffman Group representatives were already there, standing and smiling as Victoria entered. She went through the motions of the meeting on autopilot, shaking hands, making small talk, presenting her proposal. The Hoffmans were impressed, enthusiastic even. By all accounts, the meeting was a success. They agreed to the deal, papers were signed, champagne was poured to celebrate. But Victoria felt none of the triumph she'd expected. All she could think about was James Morrison's face, the sadness in his eyes, the dignity with which he'd handled her cruelty. After the Hoffmans left, Victoria sat alone in the meeting room, staring at her phone. The video was already circulating on social media. "Wealthy real estate mogul berates billionaire hotel owner," read one headline. The comments were brutal. People she'd never met were calling her entitled, cruel, out of touch. But what haunted her most wasn't the public embarrassment. It was the private knowledge that they were right. She thought back over the past decade of her life. How many people had she dismissed because they didn't meet her standards? How many acts of kindness had she rejected because they came from someone she deemed unworthy of her attention? She'd told herself she was being discriminating, protecting herself, maintaining standards. But really, she'd just been building walls. Victoria's phone buzzed. A message from her assistant. "Emergency. 3 major clients have called to cancel meetings. The video is everywhere." Of course it was. In today's world, nothing stayed private. Her cruelty had been witnessed by hundreds in the lobby and would be seen by millions online. Her reputation, built over decades, was crumbling in real time. She should have been panicking, calling lawyers, crafting apologies for damage control. Instead, Victoria found herself standing and walking back through the hotel. She found Marcus at the front desk, his face still showing signs of stress from the earlier incident. "Marcus," she said, "I need to speak with Mr. Morrison." Marcus looked uncomfortable. "I'm not sure that's possible, Mrs. Ashford. Mr. Morrison has asked not to be disturbed." "Please," Victoria said, and the word felt foreign in her mouth. When was the last time she'd truly asked someone for something rather than demanded it? "I need to apologize, really apologize, not for my reputation or my business, for being who I was in that lobby." Something in her tone must have convinced him, because Marcus picked up a phone and had a brief, quiet conversation. He hung up and nodded. "Room 1842, it's a service level. He uses it as an office when he's inspecting properties." Victoria took the elevator up, her heart pounding. The 18th floor was indeed a service level. Plain walls, simple lighting, none of the luxury of the guest floors. She found room 1842 and knocked. "Come in," James's voice called. The room was small, furnished with a simple desk, a filing cabinet and a couple of chairs. James was sitting at the desk, now changed into slightly cleaner jeans and a plain shirt, reviewing what looked like maintenance reports. He didn't stand when she entered. "Mrs. Ashford," he acknowledged. Victoria had prepared a speech in the elevator, carefully crafted words designed to repair bridges and save face. But standing there, looking at this man she'd wronged, all those calculated phrases evaporated. "What would you say in this moment? I'm curious about your thoughts. Please leave a comment." "I was wrong," she said simply. "Not just about you specifically, though I was certainly wrong about that. I was wrong about the way I see people, the way I've been living." James set down his pen, studying her face. "Go on." "I built my success by being tough," Victoria continued, the words coming faster now. "By never showing weakness, by always being the smartest, strongest person in the room. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that being strong doesn't mean being cruel. I forgot that everyone has value, regardless of what they're wearing or how much money they have." She paused, fighting back unexpected tears. "I forgot to be human." James was quiet for a moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "Do you know why I still do property inspections myself?" he asked. "Why I walk through my hotels in work clothes, checking maintenance closets and talking to housekeeping staff?" Victoria shook her head. Because the moment I forget where I came from, the moment I start thinking I'm better than the person cleaning the rooms or fixing the plumbing, is the moment I lose everything that matters. Not the business, not the money. The part of me that's still that kid working 3 jobs to put himself through school, who understood that kindness costs nothing and means everything. He turned back to face her. I've been in your position, Mrs. Ashford. Not exactly, but close enough. There was a time early in my career when I'd made my first million and I thought I'd arrived. I walked into a restaurant and was rude to the waitress because I was stressed and she was moving too slowly. My mentor, an old man who'd helped me get my first business loan, was there. He saw the whole thing. You know what he did? What? Victoria asked. He took me outside and told me that he was withdrawing his investment and his friendship. He said, "James, I didn't invest in you because I thought you'd make money. I invested because I thought you were a good person. If money is going to turn you into someone who treats people as less than human, then I'd rather stay poor." That conversation changed my life. It was the last time I ever treated anyone as if they were beneath me. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face now, not caring that her makeup was running. "I don't know if I can change," she admitted. "I've been this way for so long." James's expression softened. "The fact that you're here, having this conversation, means you're already changing. The question is whether you'll let this moment pass and go back to who you were, or whether you'll let it transform you into who you could be." "I want to be better," Victoria said. "I want to be someone who sees people as people, not as their net worth or their job title. But I don't know how to undo years of this." "Start small," James suggested. "Tomorrow morning, when you leave your suite, say hello to the housekeeping staff, learn their names, ask about their families. When you're in a meeting, remember that the administrative assistant who brings you coffee has dreams and struggles just as valid as yours. When someone holds a door for you, say thank you and mean it." He walked back to his desk and pulled out a business card, writing something on the back. "This is my personal number," he said, handing it to her. "Not for business, but if you're serious about changing, about becoming more conscious of how you move through the world, call me in a month. Tell me what you've learned. Tell me how it's going." Victoria took the card with trembling hands. "Why are you being kind to me after what I did?" James smiled, and it was warm and genuine. "Because someone was kind to me when I didn't deserve it. Because I believe people can grow and change. And because, Mrs. Ashford, underneath all that armor you've built up, I suspect there's a person who's been waiting a long time to break free." Victoria left the hotel that evening through a side entrance, avoiding the lobby where her humiliation had played out. But before she left, she did something she hadn't done in years. She stopped by the front desk and asked to speak to the concierge who'd helped her when she checked in. His name was David, and he looked nervous when he approached. "Mrs. Ashford, how can I help you?" "I just wanted to thank you," Victoria said. "You've been very helpful during my stay. I appreciate it." David blinked in surprise. "Oh, you're welcome. That's very kind of you to say." It was such a small thing, but as Victoria walked to her car, she felt something shift inside her. The next few weeks were the hardest of Victoria's professional life. The video had gone viral, and the court of public opinion was merciless. She lost several major clients. Business associates who'd fawned over her just weeks before now returned her calls late or not at all. Her company's stock price dipped. Her board of directors called an emergency meeting to discuss brand reputation management. Victoria could have done what many in her position would have done: hired a crisis PR firm, issued a carefully worded non-apology, waited for the news cycle to move on. Instead, she posted a video of her own. No professional makeup, no carefully crafted script. Just her, sitting in her office, speaking from the heart. "My name is Victoria Ashford," she began, "and I'm the woman from that video. The woman who shouted at a stranger for the crime of trying to help me. I've spent the last few weeks doing a lot of thinking about how I got to that point, about the person I've become. I want to tell you that I was having a bad day, that it was out of character, that I'm not really like that. But that would be a lie. The truth is I've treated people as less than human for years. I've judged them by their appearance, their job, their perceived usefulness to me. I've built an empire while forgetting to build my character. I can't undo what I did. I can't take back those words or the hurt they caused, but I can promise to do better. Not through words, but through actions. Starting today, my company is implementing a new initiative. We're partnering with workforce development programs to provide job training and opportunities for people who are often overlooked by traditional employers. We're instituting new policies to ensure that everyone who works with or for our company, from the CEOs we negotiate with to the janitors who clean our offices, is treated with dignity and respect. And personally, I'm committing to a year of service. 1 day a week, I'll be volunteering at a homeless shelter because I need to remember that circumstances, not character, often determine whether someone is serving champagne in a boardroom or asking for change on a street corner. The video went viral too, but this time, the response was mixed. Some people praised her honesty and commitment to change. Others were skeptical, calling it a publicity stunt. Victoria tried not to read the comments, focusing instead on following through on her promises. Would you believe in her change? Or do you think people like this can never really transform? Drop your thoughts below. The first day she volunteered at the shelter was humbling. She showed up in jeans and a simple shirt, no designer labels, no jewelry except her watch, and was assigned to help serve lunch. The woman running the kitchen, Rosa, was a no-nonsense grandmother who'd been volunteering for 20 years. "You ever served food before?" Rosa asked. No," Victoria admitted. Rosa handed her an apron and a large ladle. "It's not complicated. 1 scoop of vegetables, 1 scoop of rice, smile at people. Can you do that?" Victoria nodded. For the next 3 hours she stood behind a steam table, scooping food onto plates and looking into the faces of people society had largely forgotten. There was the young mother with 2 kids, living in her car after an eviction, the veteran with PTSD who struggled to maintain eye contact, the elderly man who'd lost his savings to medical bills, the college student who'd been kicked out when he came out to his family. Each person had a story. Each person had dignity. And each person, Victoria realized with growing clarity, could have been her under different circumstances. At the end of the day, Rosa found Victoria sitting in the storage room, crying. "First day is always hard," Rosa said matter-of-factly, sitting down beside her. "You see yourself in them. You realize how thin the line is between where you are and where they are." "I've been so blind," Victoria whispered. "I thought success meant separating myself from people like this. I thought wealth meant I'd transcended the struggle, but I just got lucky. Right circumstances, right opportunities, right support at the right times. It could just as easily have been me in that line." Rosa nodded. "Now you're starting to understand. The question is, what are you going to do with that understanding?" Victoria kept volunteering. Week after week she showed up, served food, listened to stories, and slowly began to see the world through different eyes. She learned that the man she thought was lazy for being unemployed actually had a disability that made work difficult. The woman she might once have dismissed as making bad choices had been fleeing domestic violence with nothing but her children. The teenager who looked troubled was actually brilliant, but had aged out of foster care with no support system. Her perspective on everything began to shift. In board meetings, when executives talked about maximizing efficiency through staff cuts, she found herself asking about the human cost. When her company considered a development project that would displace a low-income neighborhood, she insisted they find a solution that included affordable housing for current residents. Her colleagues thought she'd lost her mind. Some called her soft. Others suggested she take a vacation, that the viral video had traumatized her. But her assistant, Margaret, who'd worked for Victoria for 8 years, pulled her aside one day. "I don't know what happened to you," Margaret said, "but whatever it is, don't lose it. This is the first time in 8 years I've felt like I was working for a human being instead of a robot." That comment stayed with Victoria. How many people had she made feel less than human? How much damage had she done, not through single dramatic moments like in the hotel lobby, but through countless small acts of dismissiveness, impatience, and disregard? A month after her encounter with James Morrison, Victoria called the number on his card. He answered on the 3rd ring. James Morrison. "Mr. Morrison, it's Victoria Ashford. You said to call in a month, to tell you what I'd learned." "I remember," James said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "So what have you learned?" Victoria took a deep breath. "I've learned that I spent 40 years building a fortress and calling it a castle. I've learned that the people I dismissed as unimportant were actually the most important of all, because they're the ones who show you who you really are when you think no one is watching. I've learned that change is painful, and people are skeptical, and some days I want to give up and go back to who I was, because it was so much easier. But I've also learned that easy isn't the same as right, and comfort isn't the same as fulfillment." James was quiet for a moment. "That's quite a lot to learn in a month." I have a question for you, Victoria said. How did you do it? How did you become successful without becoming like I was? Who says I didn't? James replied. I told you about that moment with my mentor. But that wasn't the only time I got it wrong. I've had to learn and relearn these lessons over and over. The difference is I kept trying. I kept choosing to see people as people, even when it was inconvenient, even when it cost me business deals or opportunities. Because at the end of the day, I wanted to be someone my younger self would respect. I want that too, Victoria said. Then keep doing what you're doing, James told her. Keep showing up, keep listening. Keep remembering that every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And Victoria, thank you for calling. It takes courage to admit you were wrong and to work to do better. After they hung up, Victoria sat in her office looking out at the city skyline. She'd spent so many years focused on climbing higher, on standing above everyone else, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand beside someone. 6 months after the incident at the Grand Metropolitan, Victoria's company launched its workforce development program. They partnered with 3 shelters and 2 job training programs, offering paid internships and full-time positions to people who'd been excluded from traditional employment. The first group of participants included Rosa's nephew, who'd been in and out of homelessness for years, a single mother Victoria had met at the shelter who'd lost her job due to lack of childcare, and a veteran who just needed someone to give him a chance. Victoria insisted on being involved in the training personally. She worked with HR to ensure the program wasn't just a PR move, but a genuine opportunity for people to build careers. She met with each participant, learned their stories and connected them with mentors within the company. The business media was skeptical. Victoria Ashford's redemption tour, read one headline. Can a leopard change its spots? Asked another. But Victoria wasn't doing it for the media. She was doing it because she'd finally understood something that had eluded her for decades. Success without humanity is just accumulation, and accumulation is empty. Not everyone in her life understood. Some of her oldest business associates drifted away, uncomfortable with her new priorities. Her mother called her foolish for risking her reputation on charity cases. Even some of her employees were confused by the changes. But Victoria also found new connections. The participants in her program taught her things she'd never learned in any MBA program. Rosa became a genuine friend, the kind who'd tell her when she was being ridiculous and celebrate with her when things went well. And she developed a deeper relationship with her own staff, finally learning the names of the people who made her office run, asking about their lives, seeing them as complete human beings rather than functions. A year after that day in the hotel lobby, Victoria attended the Grand Metropolitan's annual charity gala. She almost didn't go, worried it would be awkward, but something compelled her to attend. James Morrison gave the keynote address, talking about the hotel industry's responsibility to the community. When he finished, he spotted Victoria in the crowd and made his way over. "Mrs. Ashford," he said, extending his hand, "it's good to see you." Victoria shook his hand, no longer flinching at the touch. "I want to thank you," she said, "for that day, for not letting me off easy, for believing I could change." James smiled. "You did the hard part. I just held up a mirror." "I've been thinking," Victoria continued, "our companies should collaborate. Your hotels could be training grounds for our workforce program participants, hospitality jobs, management training. What do you think?" "I think that's an excellent idea," James said. "Let's set up a meeting." As Victoria left the gala that night, she caught her reflection in one of the lobby's mirrors, the same mirrors that had reflected her perfectly polished exterior a year ago. She looked different now. Older, maybe. More tired, certainly. But also more real, more human, more herself. Sometimes the most important moments of our lives come from our worst mistakes. Victoria would never be glad she humiliated James Morrison in his own hotel lobby, but she would always be grateful for what it taught her. The person she'd been that day, imperious, cruel, judgmental, hadn't appeared overnight. She'd been built gradually, through years of prioritizing success over kindness, image over authenticity, power over connection. And just as that person had been built gradually, she was being rebuilt the same way, day by day, choice by choice, interaction by interaction. There were still hard days, days when her old instincts kicked in and she had to consciously choose patience over irritation, understanding over judgment. Days when she wanted to retreat back into her fortress, where things were simpler and she didn't have to feel so much. But then she'd remember James Morrison's face, the sadness in his eyes when he said, "That tells me everything I need to know about you." And she'd remember that she had a choice. Every day, every moment she had a choice about who she wanted to be. The woman who screamed, "Don't touch me," at a stranger was still part of her history. That moment would always be there, recorded on phones and circulated on social media, a permanent reminder of her worst self. But it no longer defined her entirely. It was the beginning of her transformation, the catalyst that forced her to confront the person she'd become and make a conscious decision to become someone different. Thank you for taking this journey with me today. If this story moved you, if it made you think about how you treat the people around you, then it served its purpose. Change isn't easy. Being honest with ourselves about our flaws, our prejudices, our capacity for cruelty is painful. But it's also the only path to becoming better. The person you were yesterday doesn't have to be the person you are tomorrow. Every interaction is a choice. Every moment is an opportunity to see the humanity in others and to reflect our own humanity back to them. Don't let comfort and success build walls between you and the rest of the world. Stay humble, stay kind, stay human. There's another story right beside this one about the unexpected teachers in our lives and the lessons that change everything. You might love it just as much as this one.